When Sarah Ferguson opened her mouth this time, the royal world froze. What she said wasn't gossip. It was dynamite.
There is absolutely zero doubt in my mind. Rachel Meghan Markle was a semi-expensive yacht girl, and she knows it.
Many of you have seen this picture already. You see that there's Meghan with her Cajuna hat.
Within minutes, whispers turned into headlines. Palace phones lit up, and for the first time in years, Meghan Markle found herself staring at a rumor she couldn't laugh off or ignore. Because this time, it didn't come from tabloids or trolls. It came from inside the royal circle, from a woman who knew the system better than anyone. They say words can destroy kingdoms, and this one might have just done that. According to multiple insiders, it all began during a quiet, private event. A dinner that was supposed to be off the record. But one careless comment from Fergie lit a fuse no one could put out. Someone overheard her mention Meghan's name and Prince Andrew's in the same sentence. At first, people assumed she misspoke. But when journalists caught wind, her alleged phrase, "Meghan was Andrew's first client," started spreading like wildfire. That one sentence exploded across every corner of social media. Within hours, Meghan's yacht days was trending worldwide. Reporters scrambled to connect dots. Paparazzi dug through archives, and Buckingham Palace, silent. Absolutely silent. Harry, insiders said, was blindsided. Meghan, stunned. And the palace, already bruised by scandals past, went into quiet panic mode. Because this wasn't just another gossip story. This was a story that connected Meghan Markle to one of the darkest chapters in royal history. But before we get into what Fergie really meant and why her words might have been far from accidental, let's rewind to how one dinner conversation became a full-blown royal explosion. Because this was no random rumor. It was personal, and it might have been revenge. It started as a whisper over dinner. An ordinary evening in London's Mayfair. Polished tables, expensive wine, and familiar faces from the royal circuit. But what came out of Sarah Ferguson's mouth that night would echo through the walls of Buckingham Palace before morning. Multiple guests later claimed they heard her say it, clear as day, while leaning across the table with that trademark mischievous grin. People forget, Meghan's first royal connection wasn't Harry. The table fell silent. Someone laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking, but she didn't correct them. She didn't laugh. She just sipped her drink and smiled. And that's when it hit everyone. She meant it. Within hours, the story spread like a royal wildfire. Reporters began calling anyone even remotely connected to Fergie. Editors ordered archives searched. And by the next morning, one phrase had already taken over social media: Andrew's first client. By dawn, tabloids had rewritten the entire royal timeline. Suddenly, Meghan Markle's journey from Hollywood actress to Duchess wasn't the fairy tale they had sold to the public. It was being reimagined as something far darker, and Fergie was the one who lit the match. Inside the palace, panic quietly brewed. No official statements, no denials, just that eerie royal silence that says more than words ever could. Harry was said to be furious. Meghan, blindsided. And yet, there was something even more alarming. No one could tell if Fergie had slipped up or if she had done it on purpose. Because here's the thing about Sarah Ferguson, she's not careless. She's survived too many scandals to make rookie mistakes. Every word, every smile, every so-called offhand comment is deliberate. So when she linked Meghan Markle's name to Prince Andrew, she knew exactly what she was doing. And whether it was revenge, deflection, or just a spark for attention, she'd set something in motion that the royal family couldn't control. But this wasn't the first time whispers of Meghan's so-called yacht days had surfaced. And this time, they weren't staying buried. Because behind that one phrase, Andrew's first client, hid a story that tied together power, ambition, and a past the palace desperately wanted to erase. And the moment the press started digging into it, they found more than anyone expected. By sunrise, the story was everywhere. Newsrooms were buzzing, editors shouted across desks. Every major outlet wanted the same thing: proof. Did Meghan Markle really have ties to Prince Andrew before she ever met Harry? What began as a passing comment from Fergie had morphed into a royal investigation. Photos were pulled from old archives, yacht manifests were checked, names of wealthy socialites resurfaced, along with whispers of exclusive Mediterranean parties where titles and secrets mixed freely. Within hours, Meghan's yacht days wasn't just a hashtag, it was a storm. One that blurred the line between fact and fiction so well that even people inside the palace couldn't tell what was real anymore. According to sources close to the firm, the mood behind those gates was pure chaos. Advisors were caught off guard. No one had prepped a response because the accusation came from someone they couldn't publicly challenge: Sarah Ferguson, a royal by blood, a scandal survivor by nature. But this time, she'd gone too far, because her words didn't just sting, they reopened the royal family's most fragile wound: Prince Andrew. For Meghan and Harry, the timing couldn't have been worse. After years of trying to rebuild their public image, this new connection to Andrew's dark past threatened to undo it all overnight. And while Meghan stayed silent, the tabloids filled that silence for her, with speculation, screenshots, and old photos that told their own story. Behind closed doors, Fergie's allies defended her. They claimed she was misinterpreted, but others weren't so sure. Because Fergie knows exactly how the media works. She's lived and profited off it for decades, and the way she delivered that comment, casual, smiling, almost bored, felt intentional, almost like she wanted it to spread. So now, everyone was asking the same question. Was Sarah Ferguson exposing the truth, or setting Meghan up to take the fall for someone else's past? Whatever the answer, the fallout had already begun. And as the palace scrambled to keep things contained, another storm was brewing. One that reached all the way back to Meghan's life long before Harry, long before the royal titles, and long before she ever walked into the palace. Because to understand why this rumor hit so hard, you have to know what came before. Long before tiaras, titles, and Netflix deals, Meghan Markle was just another ambitious actress in Los Angeles. Smart, charming, and laser-focused on climbing the ladder. Hollywood isn't kind to newcomers, and Meghan learned fast that success wasn't only about talent, it was about connections. She knew how to work a room. Friends from her early years remember how she'd glide through parties, always perfectly dressed, always polite, and somehow always leaving with a new contact. Producers, philanthropists, luxury brand owners. Meghan treated networking like an art form. Every handshake was a stepping stone. Every appearance was a calculated move. And that's where the whispers began. The entertainment scene in the mid-2000s often bled into the world of the ultra-rich. Private dinners, yacht gatherings, and charity galas blurred together into one endless carousel of opportunity. Meghan was there, not as an outsider, but as someone trying to be seen. She attended industry events, charity weekends, and yes, the occasional exclusive trip where socialites and power brokers mixed away from cameras. No one ever produced solid proof of anything inappropriate, but in Hollywood and high society, perception is reality. A single photo, a shared guest list, or a resurfaced rumor is all it takes to spin a narrative. And when Sarah Ferguson mentioned yacht days, it struck a chord because the image already existed in people's minds. Meghan's strategy back then was simple: stay visible, stay relevant. She leveraged her charm, her education, and her calm confidence to stand out. That same drive would later catch the attention of major figures in fashion and philanthropy circles, some of whom, as it turned out, also had ties to the royal crowd. That's how her path quietly curved toward London. And somewhere along that path were people like Marcus Anderson, Sarah Ferguson, and others who bridged the glittering world of Hollywood with the hidden hierarchy of the royals. The idea that Fergie might have introduced her to Harry wasn't shocking. What shocked everyone was how early those introductions may have started. Because if Meghan really brushed shoulders with Andrew's circle years before she met Harry, then Fergie's words weren't just a careless slip, they were a reminder of a world Meghan left behind, but one the palace would never let her forget. To understand why Fergie's comment hit like a bomb, you have to understand who Prince Andrew is and what his name represents inside the royal family today. Once upon a time, he was the charming prince, a naval hero, the Queen's favorite son, but that image has long since shattered. Now his name is a synonym for scandal, disgrace, and the darkest chapter in modern royal history. After years of whispers about his private life, his connections, and his infamous friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, Andrew's reputation never recovered. His disastrous BBC interview, the one that was supposed to clear his name, did the exact opposite. Overnight, he became the monarchy's most radioactive figure. Charities cut ties. His royal titles vanished. The palace quietly locked the doors. So when Sarah Ferguson, the woman who knows him better than anyone alive, casually mentioned Meghan Markle and Andrew in the same breath, the reaction was instant panic. Fergie wasn't just dropping a name, she was reviving a ghost. The very idea that Meghan, now a global celebrity and former senior royal, might have crossed paths with Andrew's world before meeting Harry was unthinkable. It tied two of the firm's most controversial figures into a single narrative, one that threatened to drag the monarchy right back into the mud it had fought to crawl out of. Inside royal circles, you could almost hear the oxygen leave the room. Advisors called it a reputational nightmare. Reporters called it Royal Armageddon, because the truth didn't even matter anymore. The damage was already done. Even if it was just a rumor, even if it had no proof, it was believable. And that's what made it dangerous. Andrew's name carries weight, the kind that sinks anyone tied to it. And Meghan, already polarizing in the public eye, was suddenly standing in his shadow, whether she liked it or not. For Harry, it was humiliation on another level. The man who once fought the press to protect his wife now found her name tangled with the very scandal that almost destroyed his family. And while Andrew stayed silent, tucked away from public life, Fergie's voice echoed louder than ever. Her one sentence had done more damage than any tabloid headline in years. But was it a mistake or a move? Because those who know Sarah Ferguson say she doesn't play with matches unless she's ready to watch the fire burn. And if that's true, then this wasn't gossip, it was strategy. Sarah Ferguson has always been a wild card in the royal deck. Unpredictable, emotional, and dangerously self-aware. She knows how this game works, and that's what makes her words about Meghan so suspicious. This wasn't a clumsy slip at dinner. This was calculated. People close to Fergie describe her as a survivor. The royal family exiled her more than once, mocked her in tabloids, and erased her from the narrative whenever she became inconvenient. Yet somehow, she always finds a way back. A new book, a TV appearance, a charity project, something to make the world remember her name. So when she dropped that line about Meghan and Andrew, many believe it wasn't gossip. It was payback. Because Fergie has a complicated history with both. Meghan represents everything Fergie once wanted to be. Glamorous, independent, adored by the public. But unlike Fergie, Meghan left the royal system on her own terms. And to someone who's spent decades trying to crawl back into the family's good graces, that kind of freedom must sting. Then there's Andrew, the man whose scandals destroyed both their reputations, yet somehow Fergie has remained loyal. She's defended him, shielded him, even lived with him long after their divorce. She owes him everything, and at the same time, he's the reason she lost it all. So what if this wasn't about Meghan at all? What if it was about him? By shifting the spotlight, by dragging Meghan's name into Andrew's orbit, Fergie might have been trying to rewrite the story, to make the world see Andrew as part of a larger web of royal secrets instead of a single villain. And for Fergie, chaos is currency. Every time she stirs the pot, she becomes relevant again. Her interviews get booked, her memoir sales rise. The media calls her the truth teller of the royals, the one who dares to say what others won't. But here's the chilling part. People inside the palace don't think this was spontaneous. They think she was encouraged. Rumors suggest that Fergie's words may have been part of a quiet royal strategy, a way to redirect attention from Andrew by lighting a fire somewhere else. And Meghan, whether she liked it or not, became the perfect distraction. If that's true, it means the scandal wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated. And the Duchess, once known for accidental chaos, may have just proven that no one plays the royal game better than her. Because this wasn't just about gossip, it was about power. And Fergie, after years of being ignored, had finally taken it back, one explosive sentence at a time. By the next morning, the palace was in full-blown crisis mode. Not that the public could see it. On the outside, everything looked calm. The flags still waved, the guards still marched, and the royal accounts posted cheerful photos of ribbon cuttings and garden visits. But behind the gold-trimmed doors of Buckingham Palace, the mood was anything but ordinary. Phones buzzed non-stop, aides whispered in hallways. Every department, from communications to security, was suddenly on edge, because this time, the scandal hadn't come from a journalist, a leaked email, or a rogue author. It had come from within, from one of their own. Sarah Ferguson's comment had turned the palace upside down. Her words didn't just embarrass the family, they reopened wounds they'd spent years trying to bury. And the worst part? There was no clear way to contain it. For Prince Harry, it was personal humiliation. He'd built his entire post-royal life around protecting Meghan from media attacks. But this time, the source wasn't a tabloid hack. It was his aunt by marriage, someone who had smiled with them at family events, someone they'd trusted. Insiders say he was livid but also trapped. If he lashed out publicly, it would only give the story more oxygen. If he stayed silent, it looked like guilt. Meghan, on the other hand, reportedly withdrew. No statements, no appearances, no cryptic quotes on social media, just silence. And in the world of celebrity and royalty, silence is the loudest answer you can give. That silence left the press to fill in the blanks. Articles speculated about her reaction, her whereabouts, and her marriage. Every photo of her from the past was now being reanalyzed, every facial expression scrutinized for clues. Even her closest friends were hesitant to speak. Meanwhile, the palace's crisis team scrambled. Emergency meetings were held to decide whether to issue an official denial or simply let the rumor burn out on its own. But how do you control a story that came from Fergie, a woman who thrives in chaos and refuses to apologize? Some senior courtiers wanted her silenced. Others warned that confronting her would make things worse. And somewhere between those hushed debates, one truth became painfully clear. This wasn't just a PR problem, it was a trust problem. If Sarah Ferguson could casually detonate a bomb like this, who might be next? By nightfall, royal insiders described the atmosphere as tense and brittle. Every statement had to be vetted, every appearance rehearsed, because now anything, even a smile, could be twisted into proof. The royal machine was running, but for once it wasn't in control. And as Meghan's silence deepened, the question everyone was too afraid to ask hung in the air. What if Fergie wasn't lying? Days turned into weeks, but the story refused to die. Every time the palace tried to move on, another headline brought it back. Clips of Fergie smiling at events resurfaced. Old photos of Meghan on boats or at luxury fundraisers were recycled by tabloids desperate to keep the flames alive. Buckingham Palace, true to its ancient rule, never explain, never complain, said nothing. But that silence only fueled the fire. For royal watchers, it was confirmation that something bigger was being hidden. For Meghan's critics, it was proof of guilt. For her supporters, it was proof of a witch hunt. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the atmosphere was suffocating. Advisors worked overtime to manage the damage, quietly calling editors, arranging soft focus interviews, anything to steer attention away from the scandal. But the truth was, they were outmatched. Sarah Ferguson had said too little to deny and too much to ignore. And Meghan? She stayed invisible. No events, no interviews, no statements. That silence became her shield and her punishment. Every day she stayed quiet. The narrative shaped itself without her. Every rumor grew stronger in the vacuum she left behind. Harry was torn, furious at the betrayal, yet terrified that speaking up would make things worse. He knew how these stories worked. Once they start, they never really end. They just evolve. By now, even people inside the royal household had stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. They'd seen this pattern before. One spark, one phrase, and suddenly a royal reputation burns for years. And as one insider quietly admitted, this time, it feels different. This time, it's personal. Because when the scandal comes from within the family, the wound doesn't heal, it festers. And that's where things stand now. The palace pretending calm, Meghan silent, Fergie smiling, and everyone waiting for the next leak, the next whisper, the next photograph that could either prove everything or bury it forever. But one question still haunts the monarchy. If this was just one thing Fergie dared to say out loud, what else is she keeping quiet? Because if this is what she's willing to reveal at dinner, imagine what's still being whispered behind palace walls. And trust me, the next secret might not just ruin Meghan, it could shatter the firm itself. This is Star Spotlight, where the truth glimmers, even in the shadows. Stay curious, stay bold, and if you thought this scandal was wild, wait until you hear what comes next.